This is the Chasing Tomorrow podcast with Joe Gagnon. We bring you captivating conversations that will inspire all of us to go after our own version of a high-performance life. Welcome to the Chasing Tomorrow podcast. Today I have a really cool guest, Tyler Holt. He's the founder and creator of a gym called 212 Performance Gym in the Denver area. He's a guy who's been working on this idea of an alpha life for a long time. He's got this fun and interesting journey from being really amazing bodybuilder to now getting into the endurance athletics space. And he's using these experiences to help guide people towards the best version of themselves. And so he's going to define this alpha life for us. And I think we're just going to have some fun hearing about the practical and the reality and the aspirations. So Tyler, thanks for being on the show with me.
Yes, dude, super stoked. I'm very glad you asked me to be on here, and I'm stoked to be on it and chat.
Yeah. So before, anyone who gets to see you, if they check you out on Instagram or anything else, they'll see that you're, in words, jacked up. You're a pretty big, solid guy. I imagine that wasn't always the way. So tell us a little bit of the backstory. How did this happen? How did you start moving those first bit of weights around and everything?
Yeah, so super skinny guy. I graduated high school at 100 pounds, and I'm 6'1", to put that in perspective for everyone. So very skinny guy. I was a basketball player my whole life, so I was just fast and I could shoot the ball, and that was basically all I needed. I didn't have any interest in weights in high school. I wish I did, but it wasn't until after high school I stopped playing basketball. I didn't continue to play in college, and I very self-conscious about my skinniness, my image, for as long as I can remember. And I didn't have I didn't have basketball anymore to put my competitive energy into or anything like that. And so I was just very sick of being super skinny. And I was like, I'm just going to go try to get big. So that's what I did. I just went into the gym, had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I needed to be in the gym lifting weights. And I actually ended up working the gym I was working out at. I ended up getting a sales position there and hired a trainer there. And he was just this buffo bodybuilder guy. And so I looked at him and I was like, I want you to get me big. I was like, you clearly know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I want you to get me big. And so that is where the journey started. I had no intention of it turning into what it did. I just wanted to be bigger for myself. I hated how I looked. I just wanted to be bigger. So I started training with him. And one day he was like, do you want to do a competition, a bodybuilding competition? And I was like, sure, we'll try it. And took third place my first show. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I like this. And so we continued on after that. And then a couple years later, ended up getting my pro card. And then after that, I really got into more of the fitness modeling side of things instead of the competing, which kind of kept me into that bodybuilding realm as far as my training and everything was concerned. But it really started off as just, I was a skinny guy and I wanted to be big, and I started putting some size on and just kind of started sharing my story on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it was back then. And then it just kind of took off. And then I became a trainer not long after that. Once I started in that sales position, it was probably only I was training with this guy for 6 months, and I had such an appreciation for everything that he did for me. Just truly, the way he made me just feel about myself by what he was able to teach me and put me through. I was like, I want to give that to people. I was like, that is what I want to do. Right. He helped me. He changed my life, changed my perspective on myself, all this kind of stuff. I was like, I want to give that to people. I want to make people better. And so I switched over to training, and that's where my training career started actually. And then they both just kind of went hand in hand, and yeah, now we're here.
Wow. It's interesting. There's a bit of this well, if you're going to go, nothing wrong with skinny guys. I'm probably still there, but the time though it takes to build muscle is a while, right? I mean, this is not just a fast process. It's almost like the same thing as if someone gained a lot of weight and wants to lose it. It takes similar amounts of time to transform our bodies. How many years did it take you to go sort of to where you were actually able to be in a competition?
The first year I started lifting, actually, I put on 25 pounds.
Wow.
I went from literally 0 to 100 with it. And it's easy when you go from not working out and not eating properly. And then you completely switch gears and you are 100% dedicated to working out, to eating the right way, all that kind of stuff. Those newbie gains, as we call it, is just a very dramatic change at first. And so that first year I actually put on 25 pounds. And then after that first year is when I did my first competition. And then after that was just slowly building there. So I think that the heaviest I ever got was 220 pounds. And that took me that took me about 6 years, about 4 to 5 years
Yeah. Yeah.
to put on that much weight. And I was just hitting it hard, man. I was so driven and so dedicated to that. I didn't think about anything else. Even when I was going through college, it was just like I brought all my meals into class and I was like just eating my meals in class. I was just so dedicated to it
Yeah.
that process was just it was definitely hard. Like eating as much food as I had to eat was super hard. And but I fell in love with that process. And so that love of the process made it that much easier to be able to just get to where I wanted to be. But it does take a lot of time and it takes that consistent effort
Yeah.
all the time. But it's just, and for somebody like me who's super skinny and you're a lean guy, so you probably understand trying to put on weight is not easy,
No.
especially when you're as active as you are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
That you have to eat
definitely, it's
is
interesting that
insane.
the struggle that
Yeah,
everyone, it's a fascinating sort of dynamic of individuals and activity, and where some people feel like they eat too much, can't stop eating. And often I
right,
feel like I can't eat enough. And no one says like,
right.
how is that possible? They don't even understand like you should be gaining weight. And I'm like really working on it. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I think there's a lot of learning that comes along. So then you have this personal experience and then you're able to start to translate. So that in the beginning, did you ever think like, okay, well, I'm going to be a trainer and that's going to be my job? Or was this sort of just something you were doing in the beginning?
yeah. In the beginning, I just really wanted to do that and help people. Like I said, I was going to my degree is actually in criminal justice. I planned on going into law enforcement,
Hmm.
and then wherever that took me after that.
Yeah.
And then my junior year in college, I something just clicked with me, and I was like, in the training, I was like, this is what I want to do. I
Yeah.
absolutely loved being that person that helped people. And it was the first time I remember the day. It was the first time my client had texted me. She reached her goal or whatever, and she said it was a simple text. She sent me a screenshot of the scale, and it said, "Thank you for changing my life."
Yeah.
And that was the moment for me that I was like, this is what I'm meant to do, and this is what I feel like I'm here to do. And so I just rolled with it, and I finished my degree or whatever. But I knew that I wasn't going to do
Hmm.
anything
Yeah.
with that. But I was already there, so I finished, and then from there, I was still at that corporate gym at the time, and I knew that if I wanted to take this as a make it and actually make it a career,
Yes.
I needed to leave the corporate place. So I started my own personal training company, left the corporate gym, and that's when things started really taking off.
It's amazing. The entrepreneur, a lot of people think the only entrepreneurs are the ones who work on software and coding, right? But there's a lot of other businesses that are similarly hard and challenging, right? You have to take a risk on yourself. You have to try and figure out how to build a
Yes.
business. You got to live with sort of modified cash flow for a while, all of
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of stuff, right? So
Yeah.
what were the early days like, Tyler?
Yeah, it was part of it worked out in my favor because I was able to pretty much take my clients from the corporate gym
Yep.
and they all decided to come with me. My pay actually immediately increased because I was getting all of the money instead of
Oh,
my small cut from the corporate gym. So
nice.
that next month I tripled my income like immediately, which was super nice.
Yeah.
But there was no plan. Like I didn't know I just was like it was just my next step, right? I
Right.
didn't know what was to come after that. And I think that's a lot of what entrepreneurship is what's my next step.
Yeah.
And you can try to plan 10 steps ahead, and a lot of times it's good to plan that far ahead, but a lot of times what you think is 10 steps ahead is really 20 steps ahead or 5 steps ahead. And so it was just one step at a time.
And did you find that you were compromising at all on your own personal physical activity when you were starting to run the business? Did that become a challenge for you?
Not when I started my own personal training company. When I started the gym,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and especially as we were trying to expand our gym in the midst of COVID,
Oh,
I it is actually when I had that mindset mind mindset shift to start to go into endurance work because I was going through motions and I was just kind of got bored with my just normal bodybuilding style lifting and I was like I needed I was putting so much energy into one keeping the gym alive, two figuring out how to grow during the whole thing that I was like I need something that's just going to bring me back to like the dedication and just the mental drive that I had when I was competing in bodybuilding, but I didn't want to do the bodybuilding anymore. And so that's when I decided to do some of the endurance work. And that just brought me right back into just loving what I was doing something new, doing
hmm.
something hard, learning a new skill. Because I did my first endurance event was the triathlon. So I had to
Yeah.
learn how to swim. Everybody knows how to ride a bike, but learning about biking and
Yeah.
efficiency and all that kind of stuff. Same with running. I had to learn all of that. And so that kind of put me in a much better space to refocus on myself, because focusing on yourself is a super important thing, especially when you're trying to grow businesses and all that. You have to take care of yourself in order to make everything else flourish.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's good sort of in a way always to hear, because it's a bit of the struggle that we all have, right? Oh, I'm working too much, so I don't get to do as much of my activity. Here you're running a gym. You'd think, well, of course I could fit that in. But
Right.
there are times when we have to recognize there's some balance that we have to do between different activities. And so, yeah, even the guy who runs the gym is like, oh, I got another delivery I got to take care of. I got to take care of this person I'm
Yeah.
helping to train, or we're thinking
Yeah.
about some computer system that we have to put in place. All of those activities, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the gym for me back when I was bodybuilding was my place of not having to think of anything,
Yeah.
right? I could completely zone out. And once I started the gym, it was no longer that for me.
Yeah.
I'd be working out and just like you said, I'm thinking about all this other stuff. I'm getting my phone calls, I'm getting my emails, I'm getting these text messages. Like there's so much that you have to do all at once. And so working out for like the bodybuilding style no longer was a space,
Right.
was a space for me to be clear minded
Yeah.
and focus on myself. And so I recognized that, but I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. And then once that triathlon came along and I started doing all that, I just refound that, right? The running, the biking, the swimming all just cleared my head, and I didn't think about anything else while I was doing those. And so it was really good for me to be able to find something else
Mm.
that brought me back to that space.
Yeah. So the alpha life concept that you described, did that start right when you started the gym, or is something that you developed over time?
No, I actually developed that probably 2 years ago.
Okay.
I've had yeah. So Alpha Life is Alpha Life's an idea about creating the best version of yourself and the people around you.
Mm.
In my head, when people are like, "Oh, I'm an alpha," and then people say like the toxic alpha male and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. I don't think being an alpha, a true alpha, is toxic at all. I think the world needs more alpha, right? An alpha is a person who takes care of themselves, keeps to their word, holds the door open for people. Like that is an alpha, not
Mm.
male, an alpha
Yeah.
person, right?
Mm.
Just being and focusing on yourself and really bringing the best version
Yeah.
of yourself out. In turn, you wanting that for the people around you, your friends, your family, whoever your close circle is, right? Is creating that alpha side of you that is actually going to bring that out in other people as well. Because as a good circle around you is very, very crucial to a successful path,
Yeah.
right? We can do a lot of things alone, but if you have people with you, it's obviously that much more beneficial to you. So, Alpha Life is bringing the alpha out inside of anyone and everyone, right? Creating the best version of yourself so that you can give the best version of yourself to everybody else.
And when you talk to people about this kind of idea of being the best version of themselves, how does it sort of go? Like a lot of people, are they sort of either resistant or don't believe that that could happen for them? And then how do you guide them to sort of see that this really is possible for all of us?
Yeah, I think that starts. I'll go back to the one step at a time thing. You ask people, well, what does being better look like to
Mm.
you, right? And for most people, right, they've got job, family, kids, all this kind of stuff, and they just like a business owner, they kind of forget about themselves because they have all these other
Yeah.
responsibilities. So most of the time, if you ask somebody that, it is especially because people come to me to physically get better, right?
Yep.
So most of the time for that is people losing weight, getting just back into shape, being active, whatever. And so that is a one step at a time process. Okay. So what can you commit to, right? What can you commit? Tell me that you're going to commit to per week.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people like to overshoot those goals. And it's great to have big goals, but it's also important to have realistic goals. If somebody has been doing nothing for 20 years and suddenly they're like, I want to work out 6 days a week and I want to do this. Some people can do it. A lot of times that's just not realistic for a lot of people. So instead of setting that massive goal to where you're like, a lot of people can handle a massive goal and not get there because they've learned something along the way. But there are a lot of people who try to shoot for these massive goals, and when they fail those, they get very, very down on themselves, and then they end up back in a major rut like they were prior. So
Mm.
I think everything is just a one step at a time situation. What can we do? How can we make this adjustment here to get you one step further ahead? And then how do we add on that? And it's compiling, right?
Yeah.
It's how do we add this? And then we add this, then we add this. Suddenly we got a whole new lifestyle within
Right.
6 months, right? And you're a completely different person.
Yeah. And then the reinforcement. So that happens with you and the person. Tell us a little bit about how the gym plays a role in that reinforcement as well, by being at the gym or being connected to other people. You and I ended up in Joshua Tree a little bit ago, right? And we did this activity together. And there were a bunch of people from the gyms that showed up, right? And that was interesting because they were just connected through the gym. And so you have this pretty cool community thing going on too. Tell us about that as well.
Yeah, the gym is can be a very special place for a lot of people. It can be the place that people are looking for to connect with like-minded people, or people that some people just know they need to be in a better spot, and so they go to the gym because they know they're going to be surrounded by people that are probably better than them at a lot of things. And so putting yourself in that environment, number one, it takes a lot for somebody to be like, I need to be in this environment,
Yep.
right? So you got to give people their kudos for taking that, again, first step, right? And a lot of people get afraid to go to these gyms because they think they're going to be judged. They think people are going to be laughing at them. People just could not be further from the truth, because these are the places, and any person who's involved with a gym community will tell you the same thing, that it's the best community that they are probably part of, right? And
Mm.
have been a part of, because it's nothing but people trying to get better. And part of that has to be created with the gym, right? If you go into a Vasa or a 24-hour fitness or something, that's not there. That's not what those gyms are designed for.
Right.
The smaller gyms like mine or whatever, it's we put an emphasis on the community and
Mm.
having good people in here, and wanting to be that spot where people are like, they look forward to coming here during the day. This is the best part of their day. And they build friendships or relationships or whatever comes out of it. They do an event that puts them outside of their comfort zone, and they end up meeting these incredible people. All these things just kind of flow into each other. And that's the important piece of the community, for just speaking for myself. And I know
Mm.
other gym owners would say the same thing, but building that community is absolutely crucial. And I think a lot of people think they like to be alone or whatever, but I think most people thrive in community and thrive in a positive circle.
Yeah.
And so making that an important piece to give to people when they come through my gym doors is just a focal point of what I want for this place.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because we talk a lot about in different worlds of ours, but a value system that we
Mhm.
have. And so one has to establish a value system. But if you establish that, then you stay true to that. Then the people who come to your gym understand that. And they'll actually start to defend it on your behalf, right? They're like, oh, yeah, we
Yes.
actually don't do that here. We treat people like this here.
Right.
And it actually
Yep.
blocks out the noisiness that could come, right? Because everyone's
Yep.
connected to the value system. And
Yes.
that's critical, right? That's the foundation.
Yeah.
How has
And
that
what's
grown for you?
so which goes into what I was going to say. It's kind of crazy because you start to, and then the people that find out about the gym and start coming into the gym, you start to see that more and more people are already like who you have
Yeah.
here, right? Because these people talk, and then they talk, and then they talk, and they're most likely going to be around the like-minded people and all that kind of stuff. So you generate this community that kind of just gives this, right? And so what's shown online, what's shown when people walk through the door, that presence is kind of just assumed. And so naturally, what we find is the people that are just like finding us on Google, giving us a call, whatever, they're already just,
Mhm.
they've come into the gym and they just fit right in. So the more value you put into that, and the more priority you put into building that core value and that core system, at some point it just kind of fans out on its own, and it just kind of attracts all that to you at the same time, I
Yeah,
feel like.
yeah. Right, because I know that a gym can be intimidating, but if you find the right people, it isn't. I go back to this weekend when we spent with a whole bunch of people who didn't know each other, who could instantly get along with each other, be supportive of each other, enjoy each other's time, both activity and sitting around. It just is like, oh, wow, how does that happen, right? Well, that happens
Yeah.
because we have these similar values. We care about people in the same way. Our performance is all about relativity. It's not about this absolute that one thing is better than another. And it's just such a great example, though, I think, of something I've been feeling lately. And a bunch of my people, my cohort, they lead off, Tyler, with this sentence like this. They said, "Oh, I'm not as fast as I used to be." And I'm like, who cares?
Right.
Is there something that anyone would even know? Like, if I told you about my time in an Ironman, someone would be like, I don't even know if that's good or bad. Like, it doesn't matter, right? It's being functional, right? It's being with vitality. It's showing up better all the time. But not necessarily in some absolute way, right? I mean, like, I think we have to get over that because, boy, if you did, otherwise, like, there's like 1 minute of your life when you'd be at your best, and the rest, what is it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's day by day we're not at our best, right? We're great one day, we feel like shit the next day.
Yeah,
So things are all variable and all things are changing all the time. And so yeah, be like but I think it's almost a defense mechanism for people to be like, "Oh, well, I'm not as fast as I once was," right? It's automatic assumption that like you're going to be judged because you're not as good as whatever. If I go try to keep up with you
yeah,
in a full endurance race and I'd be like, "Oh, I've never done one of these before." Who cares, right? Like that's not the point of what we're doing,
right.
right? And so yeah, yeah, I totally agree, right? We got to get rid of that stigma that it actually matters, right? That you can't go be around people who, sure, they might be better than you, but the stigma that the better person is gonna like sit there and scold you for not being as good as them, like that's not a thing. And that's the thing, goes back to this alpha life. Any type of alpha person is gonna see somebody like that and is gonna take them under their wing and they're gonna be like, hey, come on, I got you,
Mm.
right? And you want to get better? Cool, come with me. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. I always found that in my life with some of the best athletes I would be with, let's just pick running. They could run faster, way faster. But if they went with you, they never made you feel under pressure, right? They always accommodate how you were able to do it. And I
Yeah.
think that makes us all feel better because really at the end of the day, that to your point, like, well, I mean, there are days where you probably could lift more than others and you wouldn't even be able to explain why. Or a day that you
Yep.
run a little bit faster and you couldn't explain why. Even if you said,
Yep.
look, I ate right, I slept right, like this body is a pretty sophisticated system and something else is going on you don't even know. So, yeah, I think that the more supportive we are of each other in these environments, it's the most important, right? Is to have people being active. That's what we want to
Right.
do, right? And
Yeah, absolutely. And that was I was very appreciative when I did decided to do Joshua Tree with everybody, and we went on that Zoom call. And you in particular just made a point to say it was no pressure and all that kind of stuff, and that it just made me feel a lot better going into my first ultra event. I don't know what to expect. I don't know how I'm
right.
gonna feel, how my body's gonna. I don't know what I'm doing. Right. I'm just going because I think everybody should do hard things, and I think
Yeah.
everybody should be make themselves uncomfortable. Right. So but the way that you and Sean and just made everybody feel comfortable and like, hey, we're doing this together. This is what it is, right? It just made for such a more enjoyable versus if I shown up there and everybody's like off racing and they're like, keep up or you're getting left behind, right? That doesn't make anybody feel good about
Oof.
anything. So the way that you guys created that and the support that you guys gave was just it made that such an incredible time.
Yeah, thanks. I think that the good thing about whenever any of us do that, I'm sure in your gym, like someone needs a spot, I'm here to spot you, whatever it is, or you want to try a new workout of the day, I'm here to help you. Every time we do that, first we make people feel better about themselves, and then they'll probably do the same thing for others because then they
Yeah.
saw and felt the benefit of that. In fitness now and in nutrition, right? So these are complicated topics. What have you seen? Of course, there's a bigger focus on protein, a bigger focus on sort of trying to eat well and sleep. How do you talk about to the people at your gym about this combination of nutrition, sleep, exercise, life? What are your pieces of advice for people?
Yeah, it's a very broad topic, but nutrition, I think for most people to start off with, I try to keep nutrition very simple, and protein is always number one, and then overall caloric intake
Yep.
is number two. And so when people are like, I don't know what to do, I'm like, okay, so we're gonna focus on two things at first.
Yeah.
One's you're gonna hit your protein number. Two is you're gonna hit your calories, right? Because fats and carbs kind of inverse of each other. They're both fuel sources. They work differently in the body, obviously, but at the end of the day, those can fluctuate
Yeah.
really. And unless you're Usain Bolt and you've got things wired down to the exact gram on every day and how you
Yeah.
need to be, right? It's really not going to make a difference.
Right.
So right, and people go on the internet and they search all these things and things get super complicated and blown up, and then they are like, what do I do? Very simple. We're going to start with protein, and we're going to start with just monitoring your caloric intake, and then we make adjustments from there. But the protein is always number one, and I think so many people, from my experience, when people come to me, I would say 99% of people, can't say 100% because people don't like absolutes, but I would say 99% of people that come see me are way under eating in protein.
Yep.
And that's just a super common common thing. And you got vegan, vegetarian, all this kind of stuff which is fine, but the common thing with that is severely under eating on the protein as well. And so it's just a very common issue. And so that's like, first and foremost, we gotta fix that, right? And once we kind of get that dialed in, then we can focus on some of the other things. But if I think most importantly, if you don't get the protein and you're just where you need to be calorie wise for your daily activity and your exercise and all that kind of stuff, if we're not even nailing that down, we got no business talking about anything else, unless we're talking about like a diabetic or something like that, right? That's a different situation. So
what is your protein recommendation for people? Do you have a multiplier times the weight?
Baseline I like is 1.5 grams per pound of lean muscle mass. That has worked for myself and my clients for the 15 years I've been doing this. So I just stick with that, right? And everybody's different. So if we try something and that doesn't work, then you make the adjustment. But in general, that's pretty much what I start off with.
It's good to have a goal. I think that you're right. I think the American diet, left to its own devices, makes us under protein. We don't even realize that, right? We're just eating food and we're fine. But if we want to get the kind of results either that you got or any of us get, you can be an endurance runner. You still want to need muscle. And protein.
And I think a lot of like the food that you see in the store that markets like, oh, protein, like, well, we're high protein, and then you look at it and you're like, 7 grams of protein. Like 7 grams of protein is not a high protein anything, right? But this company will market it as high protein because it looks good and relative to the rest of the nutritional label. So and like you said, we don't even know. We don't even realize we eat our typical American diet, right? Which is not great. And it has to be hitting your protein number, especially, has to be a very, very intentional
I think
thing.
so. Yeah, I think that's what I've found out. You don't have an intention, you probably don't get there. Maybe randomly.
By accident, right? By chance, you ate a 12-ounce steak one night and you ended up getting a super high protein or whatever it is, right? But hitting those numbers, if we're doing things without intention, just leads to disaster usually.
Yeah, and you're right. I think that but it's the same with all of it, right? I mean, it's the how many days a week we're going to be in the gym, how we're going to eat in between, how are we going to sleep, the community aspect you guys bring to this. I keep calling them the 5 pillars. They're so simple, but you should be doing something about them every day. Just it's exercise, sleep, it's mindset, it's community, and it's nutrition. And those 5, you should be intentional about all 5 of them every day. Doesn't mean you have to be in a community event every day, but you should at least be thinking about every day all 5 of these elements. You realize that you get a really big positive effect from that when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when that's just repeated day after day after day. I mean, it's just like putting money into a stock account, right? You let that compound over the years.
Right.
And it's just amazing what happens. I mean, for most people, even if you were to you take those 5 pillars and you do something intentional about those every single day for 3 months, we'll give somebody 3 months. If you don't feel like you have made significant changes and you're on that path to being a new person after 3 months, like that's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's really all it takes.
I know.
And
it's not that complicated, really, when you think about it.
It's not. And people like to make it complicated because being intentional with things is oftentimes work. And people don't like to add in more work, right? People just don't like to. I feel like work is almost a bad word for people now, and which is unfortunate. But it is work. Being intentional with things is work. Anything in life that is going to lead you to a better path, a path of success, or whatever, happiness, whatever, has to be intentional because things don't just fall off a tree and land in your lap to get you to where you want to be. So intention has to be a daily thing.
I think we should trade the intention word for the work word, because really at the end of the day, we've been playing around with this on the podcast a lot lately, which is the word failure means growth.
Yes.
And the easiest way to think about that is in muscles, right? To failure, lifting the weight. Well, that meant that the muscle went to failure. That's not a bad thing. It actually then says, oh, I need to create more muscles so I can lift it the next time. So it's actually a growth trigger.
It is. And you know what's funny? I've dealt with this many times, and it is usually from business owners, surprisingly, who are any kind of business owner is no stranger to failure. Right. In the grand scheme of things. And then they come into the gym and we start lifting weights and they get to a point where they can't do anymore and they put the weight down and they get super frustrated. And they're like, I don't like failing. And I'm like, this is the one spot where it's like, that's what I want you to actually do. I want you to be at that point right there. But it's for so many people who understand that failure is a part of learning and growth. It's funny that when they come into the gym, suddenly it's a super bad thing, and they actually feel like a failure because they couldn't lift this weight.
Yeah.
So like just the environment changes their perspective on this word failure. But really, business, life, the gym, whatever, like failure is growth. Just like you said, it's just whether it's from learning or whatever it is, like learn or failure is growth.
Yeah, with language and sort of the way we work with each other, we construct a lot of these words because they're our simplest way of describing something, but there are more nuances and sophistication in it. And that's where an expert can help us. So, where people like you can provide some support and say, oh, okay, that is to be expected. This is what
Yes.
happens when. So then you're like,
Right.
oh, okay, I didn't realize that that's what's supposed to happen. I couldn't
Right.
do this or that shouldn't have happened now. And that's
Yes.
actually another part of the support system is guiding people through those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And support being guiding people through those moments, but also letting people know when things are okay and when they're not okay.
Sure.
I think a really good support system, it tells you when you're right or wrong, right? When you
Oh,
did
yeah.
something good, when you did something bad, when you this is great, keep doing this, this sucks, do this, right? Your best support system is going to be straightforward with you like that no matter what.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of people then are sort of not age specific when you get to the gym? People are just helping each other. Then no one's worried about I'm younger, older. We're just at different points in our journey. How have you seen that? Because I've been thinking that more and more, the more we do cross generational activities, the better the planet gets. That we're not isolating each other because of stage of our life or whether it's a
Yeah.
female or a male or it's a 20-year-old and a 50-year-old, like all the time we can integrate that. Do you see that happening more and more in your gym?
I would say in I'll speak for my gym because
Yeah.
I'm not in other gyms, obviously, but I think in my gym, yes, absolutely. And part of that comes back to the community and we did the Desert Rats Trail Half Marathon.
Mm,
Actually, that was the weekend after Joshua Tree.
yeah.
And we had first time runners doing this event that prepped for it. We had people that ran under 3 hour marathons
Yeah.
doing this event. We had people in their 20s. We had people in their 50s doing this event, and we put run groups together and now like I could go in the gym right there. A handful of them are in there right now, and they now have built these friendships and they're chopping it up in the gym and doing all this kind of stuff. And even some of them go do stuff together outside of the gym now, despite age, male, female, whatever, you know.
Mm,
And so it's amazing to see that just kind of transpire just through again making that community a point, but understanding what you said that despite generational differences, whatever, we can all still be there for each other, still help each other,
mm.
give advice in one way, shape, or form. We're none of us are too above anybody else to learn and grow from each other.
Yeah, it's beautiful, actually. I think it's Sean and I always talk about this like this stuff he knows I don't know. The stuff I know he doesn't know. We share both of
Yeah,
that. It's really fun. I feel more powerful with his experiences. I don't have to learn everything. I don't just
yeah,
say, hey, Sean, what about this? Same with you. If I wanted to
right,
do some stuff, I'd be like, oh, I could count on you. And then if there's other pieces,
right.
I think makes for a much more vibrant and sort of productive life.
Absolutely. And what better way to learn something than just going straight to the source of somebody who has the
Yeah.
experience, right? You can Google things all day, but like there's nothing better than be like, hey, we're gonna hop on the podcast, or hey, I want to ask you some things. Can we go get coffee or something like that? And having that personal connection and that communication like that is just you just can't beat that.
So to people listening to the podcast, what are like the pieces of advice you would give them, about this sort of topic of health and wellness?
Where do we start with that,
Yeah,
man?
it's hard. I know.
Just start.
Yeah.
And I know that's been said across the
Mhm.
board for people that talk about health and wellness or any really journey anyway is just to start. But you see so many people go through life afraid to take that first step, and then a year passes, 5 year passes, 10 years pass, and they're in the same space they were, if not worse, because they just couldn't take that first step. So I think one, find something that makes you uncomfortable. Two, take that first step. The I made a post not too long ago about what makes a successful life and
Mm.
kind of boiled it down to three things. One, do hard things.
Yep.
Two, keep good people around you.
Mhm.
Three, do hard things with those good people.
I love
Because
it.
because because I think doing hard things shows you internally that you're capable of so much more than you have these perceived limits on.
Yeah.
Two, when you're around good people, you're going to be around good people that one supports you, make you do better, call you out on your bullshit, all that kind of stuff,
Yep.
right? And then if you do hard things with good people, like we found at Joshua Tree, you build these connections and you that you would have never thought that you had, and you create these amazing experiences for yourself that make you want to do these kinds of things again. And then around and around the cycle goes. You do the next hard thing, you build more of yourself, you be around more good people, you find better connections, even more relationships, and that cycle just continues. So I think if we boil it down to those three things: do hard things, be around good people, and do hard things with good people, I think you're in a good spot. So if you can find something that makes you uncomfortable, and for some people, what makes you uncomfortable is just taking that first step through that gym door.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine, right? I definitely make it a point. Anyone that I see new coming through that front door, I'm the friendliest person you're ever going to meet.
That's great.
I want you to feel so good coming in here. Like, I want you to just know that you are welcome here, and that this is going to be a place for you to grow and develop, and we're just going to be here for you. So I just think that's a crucial thing. And I think if more people took more risks and made more uncomfortable decisions, more often than not, I think they're going to be surprised at how well that situation ends up for them
Yeah.
versus what they probably have in their head.
That's awesome advice. The way we always end up the podcast, because you have a lot going on, is this idea of chasing tomorrow. Like what's out into the future for Tyler? What do you think is you're chasing tomorrow at this point?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, because there's your business side, there's your personal side
Yep.
to that and everything, and I'm on a constant journey of making myself better. And sometimes, like, I've got the triple bypass event coming up, right? So there's immediate things that you have set
Yeah.
out for yourself, and then there's things in the future that you don't know, right? Last year at this point in time, I would have never thought that I've already done a triathlon, a marathon, an ultra event, 100-mile bike ride, like all this kind of stuff. Like, I would have just never known. And so the future is obviously unknown. And so being open to situations, events, opportunities is crucial. And so my chasing tomorrow is always just continue to be a better person, continue to live as I try to preach, develop myself, develop the people around me, make more connections. And you just try to be better every day, and you take things one step at a time. Like I said earlier, everything is just one more step. And so right now, just getting ready for just prep. I'm heavy into my bike training right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm heavily focused on that as far as my personal side is concerned. The gym, we're talking about expansion of the gym right now. So Jason,
Fun.
tomorrow, for on the business side,
Yep.
is planning for expansion, preparing for that, and constantly just trying to be better.
Well, Tyler, that's an awesome way to end. I think you gave us a lot to think about, some really good practical advice. How do people follow you on Instagram and the gym and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Instagram at tholt21 underscore on there. The gym is at 212 Performance Gym. And those are the best places to reach me at for sure.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on. We'll stay in touch with all your fun adventures and we'll get out and do some more together.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to that for sure. We definitely got to get out.
Thanks.
Right on. Thanks for having me on.